Wow, you guys really kind of liked that video yesterday I did about our weight loss and health journey, or whatever you want to call it, or non-diet as I like to call it, for the past several months. And a lot of comments, had some people private message me and some friends text me last night asking me for more information. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. Before we do that, I want to make sure everybody understands this is not a paid advertisement. I do not make a dime from the lab company or anything like that. I'm just sharing with you the stuff that I've learned over the past 15 or 20 years, and a lot over the past year that I've put together. I mentioned in the video yesterday, I think some people were listening and not looking at the screen. I put the link on the screen. But we did our genetic test through MaxGenLabs.com. It was $199 for the Max Function panel. That's what it cost at the time of this video. So if you're interested in that, you can go do that. But I don't want to push that too much, and I don't want to push the social media people that I'm going to talk about in the video too much, but I am going to tell you what led me to these conclusions and got me to where we are today. So stick around. So the first thing I want to get out of the way is, in yesterday's video I mentioned that I had lost a lot of trust in a lot of the medical community and doctors, and I want to explain that just a little bit before we move forward into this. And before we get started with that, ironically, for me to have to say something like, before you start supplements and change care plans or whatever, you should consult with a physician, seems weird, but it is what it is. So there you have that. So my distrust and problems with the medical community started like 20 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, when we were doing electronic health record systems for physicians that I was working with hundreds of physicians over several years, and met a lot of them, a lot of primary care doctors, a lot of different specialties. And that one of them said something that really stood out. He said something like he had to see a certain number of patients every day so that he could score 3 knee surgeries to pay his bills. I thought that's a weird way to talk about caring for people. But then there was a lot of different things like that that happened that really cemented my skepticism and cynicism with physicians, and that just carried on through with experiences with different physicians. Now, we did work, Tammy and I both worked with several different doctors in several different specialties that were wonderful. They had our best interest in mind. They tried as hard as they can and to help us. Some of them did help us. So I don't want to say a blanket statement that I don't trust doctors, because there are certain ones that have been very good to us. And unfortunately, I just feel like that a lot of the doctors, a lot of the medical school has been trained by Big Pharma to prescribe a chemical. These pills are chemical compounds, medicines are chemicals, to prescribe a chemical to treat a symptom today so that you'll feel better and take another one tomorrow, whether it's a pill or a shot or whatever it is. And that's a bad way to do, to fix problems, in my opinion. I spent 25 years in IT. I'm a big problem solver. That's just what I live for, is to solve problems. And if I had a customer that I had to go back every month to do the same thing to over and over again, knowing that there could be a fix for that problem, that I'm just treating the symptom over and over again, but not fixing the problem, I probably wouldn't have had customers. And yet, as patients, we go back to doctors every month, every 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, to get these treatment plans to keep us on it forever. It's a recurring business. And in some cases, that's warranted. I think in a lot of cases, it's probably not. And then when you roll back around to 2020 with what happened with COVID and the medical community, the vaccine, I don't want to go down too deep of a rabbit hole on this, but I had side effects from the vaccine. Tammy had side effects, and the ivermectin thing, all this stuff, the forcing of the vaccines, the medical community all getting behind it and insisting everyone get it. I had a real problem with that, that just really kind of cemented my skepticism with the medical community when all that happened too. And then I'll give you a good example of one thing that I experienced, and that was, 25, 30 years ago, I was told I had high cholesterol, probably 25 years ago. And then I tried a cholesterol med, and I was working a lot, like 80 to 100 hours a week for a period of time. I was in my mid-30s, and my legs were hurting from the knees down. I felt like I ran a marathon every morning when I got out of bed. I told my doctor I felt like I needed some rest, so he gave me some Ambien samples. I took it the first night. The second night, I didn't quite feel right. Third night, I cried myself to sleep. The next day, I was in a meeting, wanted to go jump off the roof. Fortunately, made it through that, realized during the meeting it was an anxiety attack from the medicine. Went back to the doctor. He put me on a low dose of Xanax, 2 milligrams. He said to take it by 2 or 3 in the morning. It'll be out of my system and I shouldn't feel groggy in the morning. It worked great for a while. Over time, it started to build up and build a tolerance in my system. As you know, like I said, I was big back then. I was snoring a lot. And doctors told me that I needed to lose a lot of weight because the weight gain was what was causing me to snore. Fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, I quit taking Xanax because I was up to like 5-6 milligrams a night before it would do anything for me and help me sleep. Went through a 2-week kind of mini withdrawal period where I thought Tammy was going to kill me because I drove her crazy. But then she says, "Hey, you quit snoring." And we put all that together. The end result was, because I had supposedly high cholesterol, I ended up on the Xanax and snoring and messing with our sleep and our quality of life for 5 years. And when I looked back on that, I was just kind of mind blown. Now, you all, if you follow me for a while, Tammy suffers from chronic migraines, and we've gone through everything, neurologists in Chicago, doctors, the whole 9 yards. We've done everything to try to reduce or eliminate her migraines, and was just really not successful. And then in 2020, she was diagnosed with chronic active Epstein-Barr virus. So most people get mono when they're 18 or 20. They never deal with it again, but in rare cases it becomes chronically active. We believe it was actually triggered in 2018 by one of the migraine meds that she tried at one point. And that was one of the frustrations I've always had, was all these physicians would, every time she would go, they say, "Oh, there's a new medicine we want you to try. We wanted you to try this new med. We want you to try this new med." And it wasn't fixing anything. They were just treating her symptoms. And that really got to me pretty bad. I was pretty angry about that, actually. And just could not make the progress on it. And but she was diagnosed with that, and so basically any day she can wake up and feel like she has mono, feel sick for the day or 2 days or whatever, then that would cause migraines. It was just a whole downward spiral, bad thing for us, and we had to learn how to manage it and deal with it, and what we needed to do to be able to function day to day with her. And she took some medicine. She's taking a medicine called LDN, low dose naltrexone, and that was it's not an FDA approved treatment. It's an old medication. And that goes back to COVID too, these non-approved treatments or whatever. It just really bothers me how Big Pharma and the FDA controls some of those things. That and the reason I believe that that's such a problem is that every person is different. And they react differently to different medications, different vaccines, different supplements, all that stuff. So with that said, what works for us may not work for you, but Tammy and I are two very different people, obviously, and different genetics, and we observe some of the same things through this new plan that we've done for the past several months. Now, my weight has always been a roller coaster since I've been in my early 20s, probably. When I came out of high school and went to work, I lost all kinds of weight. I got down to like 165 pounds. I'm 6'5", so you can imagine 165 pounds at 6'5", okay? And then when I got out of school, when I was like 22, I started making a little more money and, started eating $6, $8, $10 lunches. You know how it happens. And then I never saw that weight again. I passed it and went up and never went back down. And that was quite frustrating for me, but it was what it was. I was working a lot, just trying to make it in life, working 2 jobs at times, working tons of overtime at times, doing very long projects, working 36-hour shifts and different things that added up to me eating a lot of fast food and putting on a lot of weight and being very unfit and unhealthy, really. Now, I tried different methods to lose weight. Like I said, it's been a roller coaster. I've done different diets. I did, when I was, like 25 years ago, I did Slim Fast for a long time. I drank a shake for breakfast and lunch and ate a dinner, lost weight. Within a couple of months after I quit, I just put the weight back on. I did the Body for Life workout, where you work out 6 days a week, but you also eat 6 times a day. You eat, I think it was like a protein and a carb the size of your fist 6 times a day. And space those out, and it's supposed to help your metabolism be very consistent and lose weight. I actually did. I think I lost something like 24 pounds or something within a couple of months of doing that. Quit doing it, put the weight back on. It was just this roller coaster, up and down. I couldn't stick with anything very long, as most people can't when it comes to diets. And that became just the standard. There was a point where I thought, I'm just going to weigh at least 240 pounds the rest of my life. I can't get below that. And was in and out of gyms, the diets, hiked for a while, really liked hiking. I did that actually for a few years. And, we're in Florida now, it's flat. There's not really anywhere to hike. Everything's just walking on flat ground. So I don't get to do that here. But back in Louisville, and when we would travel and things, I would hike and go walk a lot. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was in some of the best shape of my life. I hiked. One hike I did in the summer of 2013, I hiked 13.75 miles. And that was up and down hills and everything. It was pretty intense. It took me several days to recover from that, because I didn't take enough water and snacks. And long story short, but I did it. Okay, I was very proud of that. Still, I am very proud of that. But just could never really get a consistent weight at all. Now, in 2018, our previous business had grown very quickly, and grown at this pace that we'd really never seen before. And I went from making decisions about $5,000 purchases to $500,000 purchases within a less than 2 year period. And stress was getting to me and everything. So I said, okay, I've got to get a personal trainer and get my body and my mind both healthy. And found a guy locally, was close to us. He had a CrossFit gym. Marcus became a really good friend. Worked out with him for like a year and a half, over a year and a half, I think. And he decided to take a different direction in life and closed his gym. But here's a picture of me right before I started. I had Tammy take these pictures of me. And so I would have documented the changes. And while I worked out with Marcus, I lost some weight, but also got in really good shape. I put on other weight as muscle, a lot of different factors there. But it really kind of got me started down this path, I think, permanently. And even though I was in and out a little bit over the next couple of years of working out and going to the gym, it ultimately got me where I am today, because it gave me a lot of things to be thinking about and working towards. Now, I see a lot of diet programs out there, like V-Shred and all these others. It's like every couple of years a new program comes out. They come out with a new program. We had Atkins diet, the Body for Life, keto, carnivore, vegan, just vegetarian, which is a little bit different from vegan, the V-Shred diet now, and all these different things, that programs, I guess, they put out there for people to lose weight and get them excited. People do it for like 4 months, 6 months, or maybe a year, and then they quit doing it. And they look back and they say, wow, I wish I had that body again, or something. But they're not willing to put in the work to do that. And this thing we're doing right now really comes back around to feeling like it was an accident for us to do this and actually lose weight from it, because we were trying to just improve Tammy's health more than anything. And I followed along with it. And within about 6 or 8 weeks, I think about 8 weeks, she had lost 7 or 8 pounds, and I lost 20 pounds by doing this. So I'm going to share with you what led me down this path, how I got there, and what we're doing. Just if it helps somebody out, I think it's great. If it's not, then neither of us have lost very much time in this. So we're going to talk about the social media people and stuff that I've followed, and the things that I've watched and learned and read that led me to the point where we're at today. All right, so the first social media person, if you've been on TikTok or Instagram Reels the past couple of years, you've probably seen some of this guy's videos. Maybe you watched them. Maybe you just recognize him. His name is Gary Brecka, and he has a company in Miami called 10X Health Systems. Now, I'm going to start with saying the caveats to this guy. Some people say he's a snake oil salesman. One of the reasons is because he is in business with Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone, a lot of people feel he's just a scam artist or whatever. Supposedly, Grant Cardone's worth like $300 or $500 million or something. He is a Scientologist, which raises a flag. And obviously, I've never met the guy or anything. He's doing better than I am. He has more money than me and lives better than me. So there is that. But there's just something there with that guy. If you're worth $500 million, you don't typically sell courses on Facebook. So it is what it is. Anyway, and then Gary Brecka, they've started a smear campaign, kind of trying to put some stuff out there. He had an arrest back in 2017, and I think that case was dismissed or something. And a few other things. He's got some speeding tickets and stuff you got and research, try to look it up. They try to find everything they can to show someone in a negative light. If someone wanted to show me in a negative light, they could look up my name and see that I was involved in a lawsuit where somebody sued me, that we settled out of court, but then you got sued, is what everybody says. So I don't put a lot of weight in some of those things because I don't personally know what transpired. So anyway, there's two distinct things I would suggest that you watch from Gary Brecka. One is an interview with Dana White, the president of the UFC. Here's a picture of Dana White in his before and after with Gary Brecka. Dana White, a couple of years ago, he was, basically bloated, had the big round head. They said his blood pressure was off the charts. He was on thyroid medicine, all this stuff. And he talks about what he did to get to where he's at today. Now, that's not just vitamins and supplements he's taken to get like that. He's in the gym and everything else. So it takes work. It doesn't just happen that way. And then the other one is an interview, podcast, actually, Gary Brecka did with Joe Rogan. I think it was in December of 23. So, but if you look up Joe Rogan, Gary Brecka podcast, you should be able to find that pretty easily. It's really long. It's like 2.5 hours long, maybe 3 hours. I've watched it 3 times. I still haven't taken in all the information. So basically one of the things he talks about is this process called methylation, where everything that goes into your body has to go through a process called methylation so your body can use it. So minerals and vitamins and everything that goes into your body, before your cells can use it, has to be refined or transformed into its usable form. His example is that you take crude oil out of the ground, but you can't put it in your car. It has to be refined before your car can run on it. So those are some of the premise behind the stuff that he talks about. And so when I started seeing his videos, I thought things were very interesting. So I started to pick certain topics he talked about and go research them. And sure enough, what he was saying seemed to be really accurate. The information had been out there for a really long time. Now, sometimes in his talks, he says things, I think, in layman's terms so that people can understand it, and then other people kind of twist those around or make them sound stupid. And sometimes they may say something that a little outlandish or something, but for the most part, what he says is very accurate. And that was one of the things that sent me down this path, was stumbling across this guy's social media, his videos and interviews, and talking about non-pharmaceutical ways to heal your body. And then the other one, as a follow-up to that, I had watched a guy named Dr. Eric Berg on YouTube for a long time, and I never really put much to it. I just seen some of his videos, would watch him every now and then when I went down this rabbit hole, I went back and went a little bit deeper into the archive and found a lot of stuff that he had been talking about for years. And he is a chiropractor. He's a holistic medicine guy. And neither of these guys, Gary Brecka or Dr. Eric Berg, are MDs, okay? And a lot of people will kind of trash them online about that. I think it might be an advantage to not be an MD, to not have gone to that type of medical school, because of what I said earlier. I feel like they're just trained to prescribe something to treat a symptom, not to fix the problem. But they obviously, you don't have to be an MD to also do research and understand science and some of those things. I really take, I'm a cynic, I'm skeptical. Anything I read or hear or watch or anything that I take in, I just always a little skeptical. And, I try to do some of my own research to validate things. And it's a really interesting rabbit hole to go down with the stuff that these two guys were teaching. Now, Dr. Eric Berg talks a lot about the keto diet, which almost inadvertently is kind of the kind of diet that we're on. We didn't say we're going on a keto diet. We don't go out and buy things that are keto foods and things like that. But it kind of fits in with a lot of the things that he talks about. And the reason I feel that way is it deals a lot with things like inflammation and the right supplements and things that help your skin and your hair or whatever. And he did a video that I saw where he talked about what happened to the shape of his face while he was doing keto, and his face went from this round look to a slender look. So here's the before and after picture that I grabbed off of his video. And those are really interesting things when you hear him talk about it. And another video talks about inflammation, and he says, people who are on the carnivore diet claim fiber causes inflammation, but people who are vegans claim meat causes inflammation, but neither of them have inflammation. And he suspects it's because both of those diets cut out all the highly processed foods. That 85% of the food in your grocery stores are designed to give you taste and calories. And that's all they're designed for. And that's why you continually crave more to eat. You're getting calories and taste, not the things your body really needs. So both of those guys, Gary Brecka and Dr. Eric Berg, are people I would recommend to go watch for information. Watch their videos, listen to the things they talk about, and especially in like closed one-on-one interviews and things, there's some really interesting conversations that you can stumble upon that may relate to some of the situation that you're faced with. And I'll give you one example here. When he talked to Dana White, he talked about how he had very high homocysteine levels in his blood, which resulted in very high blood pressure. His blood pressure was, they said, was like 160 over 110 on blood pressure medicine, and he had these extremely high homocysteine levels in his blood. And as a result of the supplements and exercise and different things, they were able to bring that down, and he's now off of all of his blood pressure medicine and thyroid medicine and things of that nature. And Tammy has always had low blood pressure. Her blood pressure has always been like 90 over 60, 90 over 58, and that's been a real concern for us. And she has a lot of that issue. When she stands up, she'll get lightheaded sometimes when the blood flow to the legs goes down. Those are I was really interested. I was like, oh, well, let's see what, it'll be interesting to see what her blood pressure does as a result of this from the changes. Maybe she's different and this same problem causes low blood pressure for her. The reason I say that is because I experience different things myself that I've put together. I get gout. I have high uric acid. My uric acid, when I went back, I started getting gout about 15 years ago. And when I went back and looked at my blood results I was probably like in my mid-30s, my high uric acid was at a high mark then, and nobody ever told me anything or what it meant. And so what happens is uric acid, if it gets too high and your kidneys can't filter it enough, it eventually usually ends up like in your big toe in the socket, and so it gets into the socket joint and then crystallizes and starts to push the joint apart. It's extremely painful, and you take meds for a couple of days and it clears up, and then you'll have a drink a few weeks later or eat some seafood and it comes back. So I was told all of these things I had to cut out of my diet: red meat, seafood, especially shellfish and fried seafood, alcohol, any kind of beer, mushrooms, all these different things. And if I had any of those, I would end up with gout. And that was, it's been a struggle for years. Doctors put me on 2 different daily medicines. Both of them made it worse, but the doctors told me it couldn't have been the medicine that made it worse. Yet when I quit taking the medicine, it got better. And then we moved to Florida. I like seafood. I pretty much quit eating red meat. And several months later, I was like, hey, I haven't had gout. And sure enough, the red meat is what was causing my high uric acid. Now I can have all those other things. I eat seafood all the time. I can have alcohol. It doesn't matter. As long as I don't have too much red meat, my uric acid is good. And every person is different. Everybody's different. And so I thought that, she may see different results from that. And sure enough, since we've done all this, her blood pressure is like a little over 100 over 70. So something changed for the better for her. And while I don't have anything to confirm that, all I can say is what we're doing and what the results that we're seeing is. So as a result of the genetic testing, which really kind of just confirmed what I believed, because I had already observed the vitamin D deficiency issue that was causing for her last summer when we quit going to the beach and quit getting that morning sun on the weekends. Within a couple of weeks, she started to get sick. That told me vitamin D right there. And then that was what initially really kicked all this off and sent me down this path to start researching and watching more of these guys and understanding what is going on. And then, one of the big things they talk about, or Gary Brecka talks about especially, is folic acid. When you get bread, anything that has grains in it for the past 30 plus years in the United States has been treated with folic acid. When you look at the ingredients, it says enriched wheat flour, bleached wheat flour, fortified foods. That means they've added things to it to try to make it sound like it's good for you. And our bread has been treated with folic acid, and it's supposedly something like almost half the people on Earth can't metabolize it. So in my opinion, when you have that and you're putting something in your body that your body can't metabolize, you probably have a B12 deficiency, and you have a B12 or folic acid excess level in your blood. Your body considers poison, and your liver is trying to get it out of your body, and probably wreaks havoc, causes inflammation, and all these other things. And that's just what makes sense to me. And so we cut out everything that says enriched or fortified, which really kind of led us to organic and non-GMO foods, because that's how you eliminate that stuff. Over the past 30 or 40 years, my understanding is celiac diagnosis, gluten allergies, has gone up like 4 times. 30 years ago is when they started treating the grains with folic acid. You put 2 and 2 together, and that's my opinion of what's transpired here. And then, we started looking at these organic foods. The genetic report talked about getting non-GMO foods to eliminate pesticides and insecticides. So I started to research that topic, and what really happened was they started to genetically modify foods to make them resistant to things like pesticides. So they could really treat the food more with pesticides to keep the bugs and insects from destroying the crops, and then they would yield more crops. Now, under the guise of we're doing this so we can grow more food faster, but the real reason was so that they could use more chemicals on it, which means the fruits and vegetables have absorbed those chemicals, and then you consume them. Now, there's a lot of little things people argue and say, oh, well, if it just says it's organic doesn't mean it is 100% organic, because if they're not testing the soil, then that's a different. But if you're eliminating most of it, you're probably better off than not. Okay, that's my take on it. And plus, we're kind of walking proof of this. Eliminating sugars. We pretty much eliminated all sugar, especially just white refined sugar, granulated sugar. If you for coffee, I use monk fruit sweetener. Amazing, tastes great, sweet like sugar, does not have an aftertaste like Sweet and Low or anything like that. Just amazing. Every now and then when we're out, we'll have an ice cream cone or something like that. we just try to not to veer off the path too far and keep 90% of our diet or more in this channel of organic non-GMO foods, and staying away from the things that have had stuff added, and staying away from highly processed foods. Speaking of highly processed foods, in the general grocery store, like 85% of the food is highly processed foods that's meant to give you calories and taste. That's it. And that's the downside of grocery store shopping. So let me switch over to the computer here real quick. I'll go through a couple things and show you some things on the report, and we'll wrap this up. So I don't want to talk too long. I know I've talked fast and gone over a lot of stuff. I'm ADHD. I can't help it. But let's take a look at this, and I'll show you a few things. Okay, so we'll take a look at a couple areas of the report that we got back from MaxGen Labs. And this is a basic page here, and it explains that there are two different types of variants that we typically find. For those of you who really understand this and can explain it better, my apologies. I'm telling you what my interpretation is, and that is the heterozygous means that you've got it says right here, you have one copy of variant from a parent and the other parent did not have a variant. And then homozygous is when you have a variant or a mutation from each parent, which is a little worse or a little stronger variant, is the mutation is my interpretation of that. And the first part of the report has more lengthy discussions for different areas. For example, this is the area with vitamin D. This is the one I mentioned that last year when we quit going to the beach in the mornings and getting that morning sunshine, that she started to get sick within a couple of weeks. And right here it says she has this variant, and it has been shown to create diabetes risk and negatively influence the immune system. And we already knew that her immune system was a problem and it needed to be strengthened. So this confirmed what we were seeing with vitamin D and the lack of sunshine exposure. Here's a section on B12, and it explains her mutations for that MTRR gene for B12. And then it's continued down here as with folates and B9 vitamin, the MTHFR gene. And if you notice here, it says she has both variants that can affect that. So she has a pretty severe problem with the B vitamins and the folic acid and all those things. She takes vitamin A, which is great for your hair and everything. It's retinol. So it says she has 2 of the 5 markers associated with vitamin A deficiency. And it gives you warnings. Like over here, it tells you vitamin A is fat-soluble vitamin, that there are studies that show excessive intake can lead to high toxic levels. So there are certain things that you need to be careful of when it comes to what you're taking, but I think most people can experiment around with some of the vitamins and things that it says they may need without, really getting into any dangerous territory or anything. There's a section on inflammation for her, and this was a big thing in eliminating those highly processed foods and all those things that can cause inflammation. And a lot of people don't understand that chronic inflammation doesn't mean you have a muscle that's sore or something. You can have chronic inflammation that's in your veins and arteries and just in your body in general. Here's a section on insecticides and pesticides. This is what led us down the path of organic foods to eliminate that. For Tammy, there was a section here about histamines and high histamine foods. And it gives you examples of foods to avoid if you need to have a low histamine diet. Then as you get down towards the bottom of the report, there are better summaries of basic things that tell you each, it's just a real short summary of each section that was addressed above. And then the last part of the report actually shows the genetic testing results and which ones have, variants, mutations and things. This is less informative to someone like me, but I can use this to reference some of the sections above. And if I wanted to go down a deeper rabbit hole, I probably could. But at this point, I had already concluded that we needed to have some of those supplements and things that we are now doing. All right, so there you have it. There's just kind of an overview of the actual genetic test that we did. Like I said, I don't want to push some of that stuff too hard on anyone. You know, I think it's a good idea to take it. It can give you some insight to it if you have the ability to kind of interpret some of it. Like I said, I'm a little different. I'll if I can't understand something, I'll do the research that I need to get things to the point where at least I can understand it for my purposes. And you know, that's I just don't see a downside to this for the vast majority of people. You know, if you look at this picture, this is the picture I showed on the video yesterday. Look at the difference in my face there versus now. This was, and I asked 3 people yesterday what they thought the difference in weight was between that picture and me now. 2 of them said 40 pounds. Tammy said 50 pounds. It was about, I didn't tell her when that picture was taken. That picture was taken in December of 2022 after we moved to Florida permanently, you know, and got down here and sold our home back in Louisville. There's only about 12 to 15 pounds difference in that picture and me now. That tells you how much bloat there was. So a lot of hard evidence there of what this program we're on, if you want to call it that. Again, I don't feel like we're on a diet. Tammy doesn't either. We changed where we buy our food. We still eat whatever we want as long as it's within the guidelines of being organic and non-GMO and all that. Again, we've lost our hunger pains, our cravings. We don't eat out near as much. We don't spend near as much on food across the board as we used to, because we're not spending as much and buying as much food at the grocery store. And what happens is a lot of people, and let me finish that thought, and we don't go out to eat near as much as we used to because we don't crave food anymore like we used to. I used to say that one of the biggest problems with overeating was the food tasted so daggone good. You know, you just wanted more of it in your mouth. It just tasted so good. And that's the dopamine hit, you know. Those are the things that take you down that path. And when we got our, you know, I think what happens for a lot of people is they go somewhere like Whole Foods and they buy like 3 days worth of groceries, and they realize that it costs the same as a week's worth of groceries did at the grocery store. But they don't take into fact, and they stop right then. They're like, we can't afford this. They don't take into consideration what's going to happen to their bodies, how much they're going to eat. We were going to stick it out and try to go through it, even if it was more expensive. And we found that it's less expensive for us anyway. So, you know, and you know, side note to that, we've been on this for about 6 months now. And the other day, Tammy said, she said, I've got stuff to fix for dinner, but the only thing I have is this can of green beans that was in the cabinet to fix. And I said, well, I don't think it'll kill us to eat a can of green beans one evening. She got a migraine that night from the preservatives in those green beans. That we suspect preservatives and nitrates are bad for migraines. Just that one time. And and now, you know, every time something happens where she gets a headache or a little sick or anything, we question, what do we eat? I'm like, what did we eat yesterday? What did we eat for dinner? What did you have for breakfast today? And we try to trace it back. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Sometimes it's just speculation of those things. But, you know, those are the real things that we try to do. We try to watch what we're putting into our bodies, and this has been the result of it. So if you have any questions or comments, post them down below the video, and I'll see if I can answer them. By the way, I'm going to leave you with a picture here. This is the before and after picture of me. This is me in 2006, 36 years old. This is me now at 54 years old.